Alex Miller rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the clock on his dorm room wall. It was already past midnight, and he was only halfway through his calculus homework. His small desk was covered with papers, textbooks, and empty coffee cups. The light from his desk lamp made everything else in the room dark. Alex was a normal freshman at Midwest State University. He wasn't the smartest in his class, but he worked harder than most. His brown hair was messy from running his hands through it, and his blue eyes were red from staring at numbers for hours. "This is impossible," he muttered, looking at problem number 7. The question asked him to solve a multidimensional calculus problem that seemed to have no clear answer. Professor Kelly had warned the class that this week's homework would be challenging, but Alex hadn't expected it to be this hard. He picked up his pencil again and tried a different approach. What if he looked at the problem from another angle? Instead of following the textbook method, he tried a shortcut he had figured out last semester. It wasn't the proper way to solve it, but Alex was too tired to care about being proper. He just wanted to finish and get some sleep. As he worked through his alternative solution, his roommate Pete walked in. Pete was a computer science major who always seemed to be awake no matter what time it was. "Still working on math?" Pete asked, dropping his backpack on his bed. "Yeah," Alex sighed. "Professor Kelly wants this done by tomorrow morning, and I'm stuck on these last few problems." Pete looked over Alex's shoulder. "That looks brutal. I'm glad I'm not taking calculus this semester." "Lucky you," Alex mumbled as he continued writing. His approach wasn't elegant, but it was getting him toward an answer. He wrote down his solution for problem 7 and moved on to problem 8. "Hey, you want me to back up your work?" Pete offered. "You've been at it for hours, and it would suck if your computer crashed and you lost everything." Alex nodded without looking up. "Sure, thanks." Pete took Alex's laptop and started setting up a backup to his new cloud storage service. What Pete didn't know was that this particular service had been secretly compromised. An alien research probe orbiting Earth had tapped into various digital networks, collecting data about human communication and technology. The probe was especially interested in how humans processed and shared information. As Pete finished the backup, Alex's calculus homework file was uploaded not just to the regular cloud server, but also accidentally transmitted to the alien network. Neither of them had any idea what had just happened. Alex continued working, his eyes growing heavier with each minute. The numbers and symbols on the page started to blur together. He tried another one of his shortcuts for problem 9, applying a practical approach his high school teacher had shown him for approximating complex calculations. "I'm going to get something from the vending machine," Pete said. "Want anything?" But Alex didn't answer. His head was now resting on his notebook, pencil still in hand. He had fallen asleep mid-calculation. Pete smiled and shook his head. He quietly left the room, deciding not to wake his exhausted roommate. As Alex slept, his homework file traveled across vast distances of space, picked up by receivers and relays established by the Galactic Consortium of Mathematics and Applied Sciences. The file was automatically categorized, tagged, and stored in a database of primitive world scientific communications. There it would sit, unnoticed for exactly 3 days, until Dr. Zixval, bored and looking for simple examples to use in a lecture about primitive mathematical understanding, would happen upon it. And that accidental discovery would soon shake the foundations of galactic scientific knowledge. But for now, Alex just slept, unaware that his desperate attempt to finish his homework before morning would soon make him the most discussed human in the galaxy. Dr. Zixval floated in front of the large data screen, tentacles gently waving as they sorted through the daily collection of primitive world communications. The blue-skinned alien had been studying Earth transmissions for nearly 20 Earth years, finding most of them boring and predictable. Today was supposed to be no different. The doctor needed simple examples of basic mathematics to show students how primitive species approached problems. Earth materials were perfect for this. They were usually straightforward, and made Klaxosian students feel smart in comparison. Computer, show me recent human educational data. Zixval commanded, 4 eyes blinking in sequence. The screen filled with thousands of files. Most were basic lessons about shapes or simple addition. Things Klaxosian children mastered before they could speak. Zixval was about to pick one when a file caught their attention. It was labeled Advanced Calculus. Homework Set 8. This might be slightly more interesting, Zixval muttered, opening the file with a flick of a tentacle. The doctor began scanning Alex's homework, initially feeling the usual sense of superiority. The first few problems were indeed basic by galactic standards. But then Zixval reached problem 7. The tentacles stopped moving. All 4 eyes widened. That's not possible, Zixval whispered. The human had used an approach that no Klaxosian would ever consider. It wasn't elegant or theoretically sound by galactic standards, but it worked perfectly. And more importantly, it bypassed a fundamental mathematical limitation that galactic mathematicians have been stuck on for centuries. Zixval quickly moved to problems 8 and 9. The human had applied similar unorthodox approaches there too. The doctor's heart sacs quickened their rhythm as the implications became clear. Without thinking, Zixval pressed the emergency communication button. Connect me with the human representatives. Immediately. 10 minutes later, Patricia Summers and Ethan Wright hurried into Zixval's research chamber. They were both out of breath, their human bodies not fully adapted to the lighter gravity of Klaxos Prime, even after 3 years of living there. What's the emergency, Doctor? Patricia asked. Her blonde hair was tied back hastily, and she still wore her sleek clothes under her official human representative robe. Ethan looked equally confused. Is Earth in danger? He asked, his dark skin glistening with sweat from their rush to the chamber. No danger, Zixval said, waving all tentacles at once in the Klaxosian gesture of excitement. But I have found something extraordinary from your planet. The doctor displayed Alex's homework on the large screen. This mathematical work. Do you recognize it? Patricia and Ethan looked at each other in confusion. That's calculus homework, Ethan said slowly. College level, but nothing special. Nothing special. Zixval's voice rose to a high-pitched trill. This human has unknowingly solved the Kelbrith paradox. Patricia's eyes widened. She had been briefed on the Kelbrith paradox during her orientation. It was a mathematical problem that prevented faster-than-light travel from being safe and efficient. The best minds in the galaxy have been working on it for over 300 years. That's impossible, she said. This looks like standard undergraduate work. Look here, Zixval pointed a tentacle at problem 7. And here. This approach should not work, but it does. The human has found a way to approximate multidimensional values that our mathematics says cannot be approximated. Ethan moved closer to the screen. But this is just a shortcut method. We use them all the time for practical applications when we don't need exact answers. Exactly. Zixval trilled even higher. Your species' willingness to accept imperfection and approximation is the key. We need to find this human immediately. Patricia looked at the file information. The file comes from Midwest State University. The student's name is Alex Miller. We must meet this genius, Zixval declared. The Galactic Scientific Council needs to be informed. This changes everything we know about human intellectual capacity. As the doctor spoke, messages were already flooding in from other researchers who had accessed the file. The entire scientific community of Klaxos Prime was buzzing with the news of a human mathematical breakthrough. News of the human homework spread through the Galactic Consortium faster than light itself. Within 3 days, every major scientific institution had a copy of Alex's calculus solutions. Research centers across 17 star systems had set up special teams to study the human approach. Patricia and Ethan found themselves suddenly very popular. Scientists who had previously ignored them at gatherings now wanted to know everything about human mathematics education. I don't understand. Patricia said as she and Ethan walked through the curved hallways of the consortium's main building. Alex's work uses basic approaches we learned years ago. Ethan nodded. That's what makes this so strange. To us, these are just practical shortcuts. To them, it's revolutionary. They entered the grand meeting hall where the Emergency Scientific Council was gathering. The room buzzed with different languages and translation devices. Beings from across the galaxy filled the circular seating area, some floating, some crawling, some walking on various numbers of legs. Dr. Zix Val waved them over with 2 tentacles. Next to the doctor sat Grand Mathematician Plon, the highest scientific authority in 3 star systems. Plon resembled a large yellow puffball with 7 eye stalks that constantly moved in different directions. Humans, Plon's voice boomed through a translator. Explain to us how your species developed this mathematical insight. Patricia cleared her throat. Grand Mathematician, we're not sure we understand what makes Alex Miller's work special. To us, these are standard methods. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Plon's eye stalks all turned to face Patricia directly. Standard methods, Plon repeated. You mean all humans solve problems this way? Well, yes, Ethan said. We call them practical approximations. When exact solutions are too complex or time-consuming, we find ways to get close enough. The room erupted in noise. Scientists turned to each other, gesturing wildly. Some started arguing loudly. Dr. Zix Val raised all tentacles for silence. We have confirmed that this approach solves the Kelbrith paradox, which has prevented safe faster-than-light travel for centuries. A holographic display appeared in the center of the room, showing mathematical equations swirling in 3 dimensions. One sequence glowed brighter than the others. Alex's solution to problem 7. The human approach creates a mathematical bridge between dimensions that our theory said was impossible, Dr. Zix Val explained. But it works perfectly in practical application. How could we miss this? Asked a rock-like being from the outer rim. It seems so simple now. Patricia looked at the equations, finally understanding why the aliens were so excited. I think it's because your mathematics seeks perfect solutions, she said. Humans live on a dangerous planet where waiting for perfection could mean death. We've evolved to find good enough answers quickly. This caused another wave of excited discussion. The concept that a species might prioritize speed and practicality over theoretical perfection seemed to shock many of the scientists. We must study more human mathematics, Plon declared. And we must meet this Alex Miller. That won't be easy, Ethan said. He doesn't know his homework was shared with you. He's just a college student trying to pass his class. A college student? Several voices asked at once, translation devices struggling to keep up with the sudden outburst. Yes, Patricia confirmed. Not a top mathematician or scientist, just an ordinary student doing homework. The idea that a regular human student could solve what the galaxy's brightest minds couldn't seem to stun the entire assembly into silence. For several moments, no one spoke. Finally, Grand Mathematician Plon's voice broke the silence. The implications are clear. We have underestimated humans. Their Deathworld evolution has created minds that work differently than ours, minds that see solutions where we see only impossibilities. We must go to Earth, Dr. Zix Val announced. Patricia and Ethan will help us find this Alex Miller and his teacher. We need to understand how humans think. As the council meeting continued, news of the discovery spread to trading vessels and diplomatic ships. By the end of the day, humans had suddenly become the most interesting species in the galaxy. Alex woke up to his phone buzzing nonstop. He had 15 missed calls and over 30 text messages, mostly from numbers he didn't recognize. Confused and still half asleep, he checked the time. It was 9:45 a.m. He had missed his 8:30 calculus class. Great, he muttered, jumping out of bed. He had wanted to ask Professor Kelly about some of the problems he struggled with last night. As he grabbed his clothes, his phone rang again. This time, it was Pete. Dude, where are you? Pete sounded excited. There are some seriously weird people looking for you in the dorm lobby. They say they're from some science institute." "What?" Alex was confused. "I don't know any science institute people." "Well, they know you." And Alex, one of them doesn't look quite normal. Like, really not normal. Alex told Pete he'd be there soon and quickly got dressed. As he walked toward the elevator, his mind raced. Why would anyone be looking for him? Was it about his scholarship? Had he accidentally applied for something while half asleep during his late-night study sessions? When the elevator doors opened to the lobby, Alex immediately spotted the group. Two normal-looking people in strange clothes stood next to a third figure who was definitely not human. The being was tall, blue-skinned, with 4 eyes and several waving tentacles. A few students were taking pictures from a safe distance. Alex Miller, one of the humans, a blonde woman, stepped forward. "I'm Patricia Summers, and this is Ethan Wright. We're human representatives at the Galactic Consortium." Alex looked around for hidden cameras, certain this was some kind of prank. "And this," Patricia continued, "is Dr. Zix Ball, leading researcher at the Consortium's Mathematics Division." The blue alien made a strange gesture with its tentacles. "Greetings, mathematical genius," it said through what appeared to be a small translation device. "Look," Alex said, backing up slightly. "I think you have the wrong person. I'm barely passing calculus." Ethan smiled kindly. "We know exactly who you are. Your calculus homework has caused quite a stir in the galactic scientific community." Alex blinked. My homework. It was somehow uploaded to an interstellar network, Patricia explained. "Your approach to multidimensional calculus problems has solved a paradox that alien mathematicians have been struggling with for centuries." Alex remembered Pete backing up his computer. "But I was just using shortcuts to finish faster. Professor Kelly always says my methods aren't proper." Dr. Zix Val's tentacles waved excitedly. "These shortcuts are precisely what make your work brilliant. You found a path no one has seen before." By now, a small crowd had gathered. Students were whispering and pointing at the alien visitor. Campus security had arrived, but seemed unsure what to do about a blue tentacle being in their lobby. "We need to meet this Professor Kelly," Dr. Zix Val announced. "The teacher who inspired such innovative thinking must be a mathematical genius of the highest order." Alex checked his phone. "She has office hours right now. I was going to ask her about the homework anyway." As they walked across campus, Alex tried to process what was happening. The alien scientist kept asking him questions about his mathematical philosophy, while Alex insisted he was just trying to finish his homework before falling asleep. Students stared as they passed. Some took videos. A few recognized Alex and pointed, whispering to each other. "So you're saying," Alex tried to understand, "that my sloppy calculus homework is actually important?" "More than important," Ethan said. "It's revolutionary. The Kelbrith paradox has prevented safe, faster-than-light travel for centuries. Your solution makes it possible." "But I wasn't trying to solve any paradox," Alex protested. "I was just trying to get my homework done so I could sleep." Patricia smiled. "That's exactly what makes it so fascinating. You weren't approaching it as an impossible problem. So you weren't limited by what everyone knows is impossible." They reached the mathematics building where Professor Kelly had her office. Alex couldn't help feeling nervous. He was about to introduce his calculus professor to an alien scientist who thought Alex was some kind of genius. "Professor Kelly is going to think I'm crazy," Alex muttered as they climbed the stairs to her office. Professor Samantha Kelly was grading papers when someone knocked on her office door. She called for them to enter without looking up from her work. When she finally raised her eyes, she froze. Standing in her doorway was one of her students, 2 strangely dressed people, and what appeared to be a blue creature with tentacles. "Alex," she asked slowly, "what's going on?" "Hi, Professor Kelly," Alex said nervously. "These people wanted to meet you. It's about my calculus homework." Professor Kelly put down her pen. She was a practical woman in her 50s with short gray hair and glasses. After 20 years of teaching, she thought she had seen everything. She was wrong. "I am Dr. Zix Val," the blue creature said through a small device. "Your student has solved the Kelbrith paradox, one of the greatest mathematical challenges in the galaxy." Professor Kelly stared silently for a moment, then looked at Alex. "Is this some kind of elaborate excuse for missing class this morning?" Patricia stepped forward. "Professor Kelly, I'm Patricia Summers, human representative to the Galactic Consortium. This is very real. Alex's homework was accidentally uploaded to an alien network, and his approach to solving certain problems has significant implications for interstellar travel." Professor Kelly adjusted her glasses. "Alex Miller, the student who rarely follows proper methods and takes shortcuts on every assignment." "Yes." Dr. Zixval's tentacles moved excitedly. "These shortcuts are exactly what make his work brilliant. You must be an extraordinary teacher to inspire such innovative thinking." Professor Kelly laughed. "I've been trying to get Alex to stop using shortcuts all semester. His methods aren't elegant or thorough, but they work," Ethan added, "and they solve problems our greatest minds couldn't approach." Professor Kelly looked thoughtful. She motioned for everyone to sit down, though Dr. Zixval preferred to float slightly above the chair. "Show me exactly which problems you're talking about," she said. For the next 20 minutes, Dr. Zixval explained the Kelbrith paradox using complex holographic projections from a small device. The professor listened carefully, occasionally asking questions that impressed even the alien scientist. "So," Professor Kelly said finally, "you're telling me that Alex's tendency to find the quickest practical solution rather than the most theoretically sound one is actually valuable." "Precisely," Dr. Zixval confirmed. "But why do humans approach mathematics this way?" Professor Kelly thought for a moment. "We teach multiple approaches to problem solving because humans often need quick, good enough solutions in real life. Earth is a difficult place to survive. We can't always wait for perfect answers." "A Deathworld perspective," Patricia explained to Dr. Zixval. "Humans evolved in a high-gravity environment with many natural dangers. Our thinking adapted to prioritize practical solutions over perfect ones." Dr. Zixval seemed fascinated. "So your mathematical approaches are shaped by your evolutionary need to survive immediate threats rather than contemplate theoretical perfection." "I guess you could say that," Professor Kelly nodded. "I never thought of it that way, but yes, we teach students both the elegant theoretical methods and the practical shortcuts because both have value." Alex, who had been quiet during this exchange, finally spoke up. "So my shortcuts aren't wrong." "They're not wrong," Professor Kelly smiled. "They're just different from the standard approach. And apparently, they're quite valuable beyond Earth." Dr. Zixval's translation device made a sound like excitement. "This is a profound discovery, not just about mathematics, but about how different evolutionary paths lead to different types of intelligence and problem solving. We would like to invite both of you to present these findings at the Galactic Scientific Summit," Patricia said. "The galaxy needs to understand this human perspective." Professor Kelly looked surprised. "Me? I'm just a calculus professor at a state university. And I'm just a student trying to pass your class," Alex added. "No," Dr. Zixval said firmly. "You are representatives of a unique cognitive approach that could revolutionize galactic science. Your Deathworld perspective is precisely what makes your thinking so valuable." 2 weeks later, Alex found himself standing in front of the largest crowd he had ever seen. The Galactic Scientific Summit was held in a massive dome structure on a space station orbiting a neutral planet. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy filled the auditorium. Some floated, some crawled, some had too many limbs to count, but all were focused on the small group of humans on stage. Alex tugged nervously at the formal clothing he had been given. Next to him, Professor Kelly seemed surprisingly calm. Patricia and Ethan stood nearby, ready to help with the presentation. "Remember," Patricia whispered, "just explain your thought process as simply as you can. That's what they want to understand. Grand mathematician Plon floated to the center of the stage, 7 eye stalks moving in different directions to scan the audience. Today we welcome representatives from Earth, a Class 12 Death World, Plon announced. They will share insights into human mathematical approaches that have helped solve the Kelbrith paradox. The crowd buzzed with excitement. Alex spotted Dr. Zixfall in the front row, tentacles waving encouragingly. Professor Kelly stepped forward first. She had prepared a simple presentation that explained how she taught mathematics at Midwest State University. She showed examples of both theoretical and practical approaches to problem solving. We teach our students multiple ways to approach problems, she explained. The theoretical foundations are important, but we also emphasize practical methods that work in real-world situations. A being that resembled a large crystal raised what appeared to be a limb. But practical solutions often lack the elegant perfection of true mathematics. Why accept imperfection? Professor Kelly smiled. On Earth, waiting for a perfect solution can sometimes be dangerous. Our environment doesn't always give us time for elegance. Now it was Alex's turn. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. Large screens displayed his homework problems, translated into multiple languages and mathematical systems. I wasn't trying to solve any grand paradox, he began simply. I was just trying to finish my homework before falling asleep. This caused a wave of translator devices to chatter as his words were conveyed across the audience. When I reached problem 7, Alex continued, pointing to the screen. I could have used the standard method we learned in class, but it would have taken a long time, and I was tired, so I used this shortcut. He explained his thinking step by step, showing how he had simplified the multidimensional problem by using approximations rather than exact values. I knew it wasn't the right way to do it, Alex admitted, but it got me close enough to the answer without spending hours on calculations. The audience was completely silent. To many of the alien mathematicians, the idea of deliberately using approximations instead of seeking exact solutions was revolutionary. But how did you know this approach would work? Asked a small green being with 6 arms. Alex shrugged. I didn't know for sure. I just thought it might be good enough to get partial credit on my homework. This answer caused quite a stir. The idea that a solution to one of the galaxy's greatest paradoxes had been attempted simply to get partial credit seemed to shock many of the scientists. Professor Kelly stepped in. This is what we're trying to explain. Human thinking is shaped by our environment. We evolved on a planet where quick, workable solutions often meant survival, while waiting for perfect solutions could mean death. Deathworld thinking, Ethan added. We don't approach problems asking what is the perfect solution. We ask what solution is good enough for right now. A voice from the back of the auditorium called out. But mathematics should be pure. Approximations are messy. Yes, Professor Kelly agreed. They are messy, just like life on Earth. And sometimes, as Alex's homework shows, those messy approaches can lead to breakthroughs that perfect thinking missed. The debate continued for hours. Some scientists embraced the human approach immediately, seeing its practical value. Others were deeply troubled by what they saw as a fundamental threat to mathematical purity. But no one could deny the results. Alex's messy solution worked where centuries of perfect approaches have failed. 3 months after the Galactic Scientific Summit, life had changed dramatically for both Alex and Professor Kelly. Earth had been officially reclassified in galactic records. It was still listed as a Class 12 Death World due to its dangerous physical environment. But a new classification had been added, Intellectual Death World, a place where environmental pressures created unique cognitive approaches. Alex sat in his dorm room, packing his belongings. The Galactic Consortium had offered him a scholarship to study at their central university. He would learn alien mathematics while teaching human problem-solving approaches to non-human students. Pete watched him from across the room. I still can't believe this all happened because I backed up your homework file. Alex smiled. The universe works in strange ways. Who would have thought my lazy shortcuts would be valuable? Are you nervous about going up there? Pete asked, gesturing toward the ceiling and the stars beyond. Terrified, Alex admitted, but also excited. Dr. Zixval says I'll be the first human to study certain mathematical concepts. There was a knock at the door. Professor Kelly entered, holding a folder. I thought you might want this before you leave, she said, handing it to Alex. Alex opened the folder and found his original calculus homework, now graded. At the top was a red B+ and a note. Creative approach, but please show standard methods too. All three of them laughed. The galaxy's greatest mathematical discovery in centuries wasn't even good enough for an A at Midwest State University. I stand by my grade, Professor Kelly said with a smile. Your solution was brilliant, but incomplete by our standards. That's the point we've been trying to make to the galactic community. Human math requires both innovation and structure. How are your new classes going? Alex asked. Professor Kelly had been invited to teach a course on Deathworld problem solving at the consortium branch that had opened on Earth. My classroom is always full, she said. I have students from 17 different planets. Some struggle with our approach. They want perfect answers, but they're learning. Another knock came at the door. Patricia and Ethan entered, now wearing the formal uniforms of senior human representatives. Your transport leaves in 2 hours. Alex, Patricia said. Are you ready? Alex looked around his small dorm room one last time. As ready as I'll ever be. Before they left, Ethan handed Alex a small device. The consortium asked us to give you this. It's the first practical application of your mathematical approach. Alex turned the small cylinder in his hands. What is it? They're calling it the Miller Drive, Ethan explained. It's the first prototype of a new faster-than-light engine based on your homework solutions. When it's fully developed, it will make interstellar travel twice as fast and 10 times safer. Alex stared at the device in disbelief. They named it after me. They've also established something called the Miller Principle, Professor Kelly added. It states that brilliance can emerge from necessity rather than pure intellectual pursuit. As they walked across campus toward the transport pad, students and professors stopped to watch. Everyone had heard the story by now, how a tired college freshman's homework had changed galactic science. The consortium has started research programs on other species they previously dismissed as primitive, Patricia told them. They're looking for different evolutionary perspectives on old problems. It turns out, Ethan added, that growing up on a planet trying to kill you creates some unique ways of thinking. Before stepping onto the transport pad, Alex looked back at his university one last time. He thought about all the nights he had stayed up late, struggling with homework, taking shortcuts just to finish. He had never imagined those shortcuts would take him to the stars. Ready? Professor Kelly asked, standing beside him. Alex nodded. Yes, but I have a question. Will there be homework in space too? Professor Kelly laughed. Always. But now, the whole galaxy will be watching how you do it. The transport beam activated, and Alex Miller, the accidental revolutionary, began his journey to teach the stars how humans think.